returned from a mission where they were given authority by Jesus to expel demons and preach the gospel. And they come back to Jesus and they're exhausted. They're tired. And the Lord knows it. And so the Lord says some words that are extremely comforting, even for us today. As I was reading through this passage, I longed to hear these words from the Lord. Come with me. Come with me. By yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. It's been a long week of ministry for me, and maybe it's been a long week for you, and maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you're stressed out about money. Maybe you're battling an illness. Maybe you're overburdened with something at work. Well, the Lord knows it. And the Lord wants you to get some rest. The Lord wants you to be with Him. And if you find yourself hungry right now because you didn't eat breakfast this morning, the Lord knows that too. The disciples were hungry. So here's a major application from today's passage. And that is, your wholeness of health is a priority to God, and it should be to you too. We live in a workaholic culture. For many of us, the internet is a part of our work lives. And the internet's always on. It never breaks. It's always going. It's on. And we have cell phones that remind us of this, don't we? We're checking the news and it's always updated. What we learn about Jesus and about ourselves right before this miracle is that ministry with Jesus isn't always go, go, go. It's not always on all the time. Ministry with Jesus is stop and go. It's stop and go. Jesus, after all, you might remember this, he took a nap in a boat when there was a storm. And the disciples had to wake him up because he was resting. I've been reading through Mark's gospel and listening to it on audio over the last few weeks. And I've been impressed with how often Jesus stopped to pray. He stopped what he was doing, and his is the most significant life ever lived. Right? We're all about achieving more and more, and here he's doing even things today, but he stopped and he rested. There's the commandment among the 10 commandments, right? It's the one we don't really take seriously. It's the Sabbath. Keeping the Sabbath day holy. Have you ever heard of someone taking a sabbatical at work? That comes from God's idea for us to get rest. And that idea started way back at the beginning. God created the world in 6 days, and on the 7th day, He rested. He set the example for us. The thing is, if you don't get rest, you'll be worse off. And the thing right now is I'm also preaching to myself, because there's always more to do in the church. There's always more to do. Church workers need rest. And so do you. Your diet matters to God. How you take care of yourself, because if you take care of yourself, your ministry will be healthier. My ministry will be healthier, and you also are the priesthood of all believers. So how you take care of yourself matters to God. So find rest with the Lord. Jesus said these powerful words. He said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, For my yoke is easy and my burden is light, and you will find rest for your souls. So, friends, I want you to take this seriously, to find rest with Jesus this week. Maybe right now you don't take it seriously. And one of the ways that we as Christians keep the Sabbath is by worshiping together on Sundays, which is what we're doing right now. Is this a priority for you? I see you here now. Make it a priority to rest with God. In Roman and Gothic architecture, the church building, the main part of that building was called the nave. And nave is Latin for boat. And so the idea is that when you're in the church building, you're in a place of rest with Jesus. You're in a place of renewal with Jesus. So make it a priority to be with Jesus, to hear his words, right? Come to me by yourselves. And let's go to a quiet place and find some rest. What really gets me about this, and we're in Lent, right? It is a season of rest because Lent reminds us that we don't need to do the work to earn approval with God. He's done the work. Jesus has suffered and paid the price. And now we live and we bask in his grace. I love Lent because it's all focused on Jesus and what he's done. The way he gives rest to your soul is through the grace of God, right? Paying the price. So friends, let's rest. Let's find peace with God. And I don't want you to rest too hard this morning, though. I want you to stay awake for my message, okay? Now, moving on from there, so Jesus obviously cares about the well-being of his disciples. Moving on from there, though, the rest didn't last long. Their time in the boat together immediately changed into being with the people who were around the lake, right? And this is what is written in Mark. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, so he began teaching them many things. Now, Jesus' reaction could have been one of, oh, not again. These crowds, they never let me get rest. There's always more to do for them, right? They're high maintenance, these crowds. But that wasn't his reaction. Look again. When Jesus landed and saw the large crowd, and this is the heart of Mark chapter 6. Would you say the parts in yellow with me? He had compassion on them, right? He had compassion on them. And why was he so moved? Mark tells us because they were like sheep without a shepherd. They were lost. They had no one to lead them. So Jesus has his disciples with them, and he's going to have his disciples also be compassion-driven. He's going to show them a miracle, and he's going to have them participate in it by bringing food to the people who are hungry. Now, Jesus also noticed that we were like sheep without a shepherd, and this is what Lent's all about. He came to be our good shepherd, to lead us to the grace of God, right? And what's even more is that Jesus, he provides shepherds for his church today. Shepherds who lead the sheep to a healthy relationship with God. And I am very grateful to be your shepherd, to be God's representative, to lead you to a healthy relationship with God. And I know that it has to begin with a healthy relationship with God in my life to lead you in that direction. And so I pray as I was preparing for this message that the Lord would move me even more to be compassion-driven. And what challenges really me about this text, and I imagine it challenges you too, is that Jesus, he had pity on people. He had pity on the poor, right? He had compassion on them, but he wanted to help alleviate their suffering. And this is what compassion means. It means to be sympathetic and to have a sympathetic concern for the sufferings of others. Jesus was sympathetic toward the blind. And he didn't just have pity. This is the difference. It moved him to do something. It moved him to take action. And that's what inspires me about Jesus. There's people who have pity and then they sit on their hands and they do nothing with it. It's like the parable when the priest and the Levite see this man on the side of the road and they do nothing for him, right? But Jesus stopped what he was doing. He was moved in his heart. He was compassion driven and he went to help them. And Jesus was compassion driven and he took action when he left heaven and came down to earth for you and for me. He was compassion, right? And now we want to be compassionate toward others because of what Jesus has done for us. So the question for us is, are we a compassionate church? And I'm proud of our church, that we are compassion driven. This month we've been helping the homeless at Helps Ministry. Many of you have purchased goods and items on those keys, and you've taken a key from the door in the lobby. You've purchased those items, you've brought them back, and now they've been delivered to the homeless. And what's moved me even more to see the compassion of our church is that last week, Tim and Lori Lindquist, members at Helps, they were volunteers there, they brought in 52 bags of laundry. Here's Tim and Lori, and here's Angelo holding the bags of laundry, and I said to them, just bring in half of those bags. We'll see what happens. So they brought in half the bags for the first service, and then they brought in all of the bags, and after both services, all 52 bags of dirty laundry were gone because you took action, compassion driven. And I invite you to bring those bags back soon because it's going to get colder. I know it's felt like spring, but it's going to get colder, and those blankets and those sheets are going to help keep the homeless warm. Jesus washed his disciples' feet, and he said, go and do likewise, right? And I'm so proud of our church that we're willing to get dirty. We're willing to get messy for Jesus. So my question for you personally is, are you compassion-driven? Are you personally compassion-driven? Yes, we as a church, but who are the people in your life, right, that need to receive your compassion? Who are those people? And what's even more is that in Ghana and Haiti, we showed compassion to the people there as a church. Here's a well, and our church helped fund this. This is halfway around the world. And now these people, it looks like the feeding of the 5,000, doesn't it? And now these people who didn't have their own well to receive drinking water, now they have a well. And they can bless people in the community. God will multiply this to touch the lives of others. And even more so, here in Haiti, our own Andrew Anderson and others installed solar panels so that the girls and the orphanage that we support can have electricity at night to light up this orphanage and to keep intruders away. That's compassion, compassion-driven, taking action, right? And I love it that we are primed to show compassion when a natural disaster strikes. 65 plus people showed up here for alert training. That's Lutheran Early Response Team. And we as a church, we're ready. About as ready as anybody can be, I guess, if a disaster strikes. And take a look at the screen. That's us. That's our church. Our goal was 20 people at this event. And 65 people, right, came out compassion-driven, wanting to learn how to respond when people's lives are totally disrupted. We want to help rebuild communities. And when that call comes, our church is going to respond. And I praise God for that. Now, Jesus, he challenged his disciples to give. He said to them, you give them something to eat. Jesus challenged them to use their resources to be compassion-driven. And when you give to Lord of Life Church, you are being compassion-driven. You're saying, Lord, take my resources and multiply them for you and for your kingdom. Take these gifts which are really yours, the gifts that you've given to me, and use them for your purposes. If you notice the disciples, their reaction after Jesus told them to give, their reaction was reluctance. They said, "It would take 8 months of a man's wage to do this. Is that what you want us to do?" And then Jesus said, "How many do you have?" And they said, 5 and 2. 5 loaves and 2 fish. Now, what really stands out is that Jesus would multiply this. But their reluctance stands out to me, and sometimes we get that way with our resources. Sometimes we put up reluctance to use the resources God's given us to bless the community, right? We get tight-fisted. But Jesus wants us to be generous, even with our resources, to bless the community. And so what the Lord teaches us is to tithe, to give 10% of what He's given us for His purposes. And if you're of little means, which the disciples here in this text were of little means, they didn't have much. If you're of little means, you might be saying to yourself, well, I really don't have much to give to God. Well, your 10%, your tithe, matters just as much to God as the wealthy believer's tithe, and that is because God teaches percentage giving. Percentage giving. So no matter how much means you have, you can still honor God according to His Word. What's really interesting that I find about how much the disciples had there is that they had 5 and 2, and this miracle is all about multiplying. And so if you multiply 5 and 2 together, you get 10. And God in His Word, from the Old Testament to the New Testament, instructs us to give 10% to Him. And in the Old and New Testament, that means giving it to the house of God. Because in the house of God, the forgiveness of sins is delivered, the poor are cared for, compassion is given, the priesthood of believers is sent out, and there's leaders who are commissioned to shepherd the church. In the Old and New Testament, it was this way. There's no other institution in the world like the church. There are many fine institutions, but the house of God specifically is unique, because in the house, God delivers His goods from heaven. Right here we are looking at them right here in the baptismal font, right? There's no other institution in the world like it. And so the Lord uses our gifts and He multiplies them. You might know that 10% of everything you give to this church goes out of this place. I just showed you pictures of what that 10% is doing. And this month, our mission of the month is Awana. And here every week, children are being blessed with the gospel of Christ, but Awana is an international organization. And so our loose change that we give this month goes out to bless Awana, and that they continue to bring the gospel to the world. And in addition to that, we give emergency assistance. Another word for that is benevolence, and that's compassion-driven. And benevolence is for people in our church and outside our church who need help paying their bills. And as I'm talking right now, you may need help. And if you need help, I want you to come talk to me. We're here to help. This is what the church is for, right? Compassion-driven. A big lesson from this miracle is that God wants to use your resources. Jesus moved His disciples to be compassion-driven with their resources and to give to God's purposes. What stands out to me also, and this is a major application of the text, is that the disciples really didn't have much at all, and they found the resources in the community. There was a little boy in John's account of all this who had the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and he provided them. A little boy, right? The compassion of a child fed 5,000 plus people. And so when you're teaching the principles of giving, teach it to even the youngest, right? Because they can have a huge impact on God's kingdom. And if you got a pen, I want you to write this down. The resources to reach the community for Christ are in the community. This is so important because the resources to reach this community are in the community. The resources to reach La Fox, Elburn, Geneva, St. Charles, those resources are in this room. And that's you. And that's me. And that's you. And that's me. We are the resources that God uses to bless the community and give them the abundance of God, that they would know the grace and the mercy of Almighty God. And what really comes to mind when I think about this is our own Chloe, the comfort dog. She is a resource of our church, and she's out in the community. That's what she does. And here's a picture. That's when I was installed as your pastor, and there's Chloe licking me, right? We became friends immediately. And Chloe, what's powerful about Chloe is that she comes across to people as non-judgmental. And if you talk to handlers who are with Chloe in the community, what they find is that Chloe opens up doors that wouldn't otherwise be opened. Conversations happen about Jesus and about God, right? That wouldn't otherwise happen. And we could all learn from Chloe and her compassion. And today, after this service, we're going to celebrate Chloe's 5th anniversary with us. There's going to be cake for you available in the Solid Rock Lodge. And I invite you to go back and visit with Chloe. I saw her this morning, and she has a pink hat on, and she has some other decorations. So I invite you to go back there and to celebrate the good things that God's doing in our community. The resources to reach the community are in the community. On Wednesday, actually it was Thursday night, I went with a few members of our church to another church to learn how they minister to the post-incarcerated. It was a powerful time of worship. They were charismatic and they loved the Lord, and they had been broken, and so they know about God's love. And the man who preached, he's also post-incarcerated, and he's touching hundreds, thousands of lives. The resources to reach the community. That man reminds me that the resources to reach the community, that preacher who's post-incarcerated and now speaks to hundreds of post-incarcerated every week, he reminds us the truth, that those resources to reach the community are in the community, and that's you, and that's me. What has God done in your life where you can touch someone else with the grace of God? God wants to multiply that. So offer yourselves to Him, Romans 12 says, as a living sacrifice, right? For Him to multiply your influence for Him, to use your past, whatever it is, to bless the world. Now, for the disciples, they didn't know that they were going to be performing a miracle with Jesus. In fact, they were hoping to eat. They were hungry. Have you ever been hangry before? Some of you might be hangry right now. Raise your hand if you know what hangry means. Yep. It's when you mix the word hunger and angry, and you get someone who has a bad attitude and they're hungry. And that's what the disciples were, right? They said, Lord, this is a remote place. Send them away to find some food. We need to eat was really the bottom line there. But the disciples eventually got their fill, didn't they? If you do the math, there were 12 baskets of leftovers, one for each of the disciples. And what this teaches us is that if you live a life that's compassion-driven, you also will be fed spiritually. You also will be fed by God. So offer your life. Rest with Him. Show compassion, and you will be fed by the Lord Jesus Christ. I want to wrap it up today with this. Use your life to be compassion-driven. Find rest with God. And be a resource to multiply Jesus' presence in this community and the world. Amen.